Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills and Blood TV. It's Wednesday, which, of course, as you know by now, means match preview showtime. And it's another huge game for the Gills this coming weekend. It's first versus second for the third time this season and for the second time in consecutive weekends as we take on the returning Stephen Clemence's Barrow. And I'm pleased to say making his third appearance now on the channel is Taylor, who is a Barrow fan. I will put his details, in the description at the bottom of the video. So please go and give him a follow. Taylor, good evening. I believe you are enjoying a holiday somewhere sunnier than Barrow and Medway at the moment. So I appreciate your time.
Not a problem.
Just having a few issues there with your sound there, Taylor. It's quite delayed as well. So we'll press on and see how far we get. First port of call is obviously recent form for both sides, and Gills have taken 13 points from the last 18 available, as have Barrow. It's an identical record, 4 wins, a draw and defeat from the last half a dozen. Most recent games in the league saw Gills beat Notts County at Meadow Lane last weekend, and Barrow came out on top by 2-0 against Newport County. Of course, there's been the matter of some small games and slightly bigger games in the week. We lost 3-1 to Palace under-21s in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, and your boys lost 5-0 at Stamford Bridge in the League Cup against Premier League Chelsea. It seems only right that we have to talk about Stephen Clemence before anything else, because he's our former manager. He left us 3 days after last season ended, I think. I wasn't a massive fan. I found his spell very underwhelming. I had a couple of questions from Barrow fans when the appointment was imminent and then made, and gave my honest answer. What's he done well so far? Because it's 6 wins out of 11, plus a penalty shootout victory over Derby in the League Cup, to have you sitting top of the league after 7 games so far.
Yeah, honestly, I'm struggling to find any criticism at the minute. He's come in and done a great job. Extremely professional, knows what he's doing. Like I said, just an excellent start from start to finish so far. Football's exciting to watch. We're pressing from the off and playing some very good stuff. So I'm struggling to find any negative words to say at the moment. Obviously, all well and good, when we're flying high at the minute, and obviously there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road to come. But so far, so good, really, with Stephen Clemence.
Yeah, I guess it'd be when you have a bit of a rough trot in terms of form and go a certain amount of games without a win that you'll see more what him and Robbie Stockdale are about. But at the moment, of course, it's just a case of enjoying it and hoping it that continues. You mentioned style of play, and that was something that we spoke about as Gills fans a lot during his 6 months with us. I watched the extended highlights of your Newport game, and I thought the pressing was absolutely brilliant. And I thought you played with a lot of pace when you had the ball as well, and you was able to turn sort of possession from front to back really quickly with people like, you've got Newby, Spence, Kouyaté from the game at the weekend. You've got Aqua, who's a big lump up front that you can go and play into as well. Yeah, really, really impressed with what I saw, albeit it's only a 10-minute highlight segment. You can tell me more, but I was very impressed. Is that a deliberate plan that you've seen throughout games this season, is to turn possession over and be very quick in transition and get up the pitch quickly and cause teams problems?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that. The way we're playing now is completely different to how it was to Pete Wild, where it would tend to be sort of sit back and hit teams on the break a bit more, whereas now it is try and control the ball and dominate possession a little bit more, quickly turn the ball over, get on the front foot, get moving in the right direction. It just seemed to be a completely sort of 180 on that front. But like I said, you really hit the nail on the head in terms of how we're now playing. I think we've got a lot more to us now as well. There seems to be a bit more of a plan B, which we've lacked, particularly sort of towards the back end of last season, when teams sort of worked us out, I think, and we were struggling to pick up results and inevitably dropped out of the playoffs in quite cruel fashion in the end, I would say. But now it does seem to be that we have a bit more to us, particularly up front. Obviously, you've mentioned Aqua, but we've also got more mobile players in Jay Garner and Dominic Telford. So we've got a lot of facets to our game which allow us to play in a different way, depending on the opposition. So I think when it comes to that, we're going to be a tricky team to beat regardless of who we're coming up against, because we can change and adapt to teams when we need to. But I think what we've seen so far is that we are trying to be more of the team to be respected rather than the team that respect the opposition, which I think we were a lot of times under Pete Wild. Pete Wild would openly come out and say, we've got to respect them, and we played to respect them. Whereas it's like, well, why? Because we're good enough in our own right. We've got the players to play a certain way, and we've got some very good players in our team. So why can't we be the team trying to attack and play on the front foot? And teams have to give us the respect that we command. And I think that's how Clemence is sort of playing at the moment. Teams are having to respect us purely because of how well we're playing at the moment.
That's interesting, that, because one of my biggest criticisms of Stephen was it felt like we were the team that was being too respectful to opposition. So it's interesting now that he's almost flipped 180 and gone, right, I'm going to go right the other way, and we're going to be the team that's the dominant force in football matches. And fair play to him. Like I said when he went, like, I've got nothing against the bloke. For me, it didn't work. He was coming in and we was promised this big change of direction. We didn't really see it. We finished 12th. So for me, proof's in the pudding. It was a failure in terms of an experiment, whether that's entirely his fault or that's the recruitment's fault or the board of directors' fault that made the decision to bring him in mid-season. But obviously the caveat was that he was going to get the benefit of a pre-season with Barrow and have more chance to be able to put his own stamp on things. And I think it's fair to say from an outsider's perspective that he's absolutely doing that at the moment. Of course, I want us to win at the weekend because I want my football team to pick up points, and it's a huge game again. But obviously, Stephen's going to come back, and I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a point to prove because he thinks he was probably wronged a little bit with the sacking after just 6 months in Kent. But it has all the makings of being a really interesting game for a number of reasons. And I think the Stephen Clemence return is just a little bit that just adds another layer to the game and the spectacle itself. But I don't think it will be about Stephen Clemence. I don't think Stephen Clemence would want it to be about Stephen Clemence, to be quite fair. Another thing I noticed in your Newport game, and I want to talk about another player who's probably gone a little bit under the radar, but he's got 4 assists already this season, and that's one of your defenders. That's Ben Jackson. Biggest thing I noted was set plays were unbelievable in that game, and that was just a 10-minute highlights package. So that got me looking at his stats for the entire campaign, and that's when I come across 4 assists already. I think he plays left back or can almost play as like a left-sided centre back. How impressive has he been this season so far, Ben Jackson, and how much of a threat is he potentially going to be at the weekend?
I think we're back. I think.
Did you hear my question?
You seem to lag out a bit then.
It was just a question about Ben Jackson and just how much of a threat is he going to be at the weekend? Obviously, 4 assists from left back already.
Yeah, so I sort of got the start of it and then it sort of tailed off. Yeah, he's been terrific so far. I think particularly in the game against Grimsby, from the bits and pieces I managed to hear when you were speaking just then. Again, the game against Grimsby where he put 2 fantastic balls into the box. From corners, and we scored from both of them. And obviously against Newport, as you mentioned as well, absolutely terrific. I think he's really shown why Huddersfield fans were very surprised that he not only dropped a division after they were relegated from the Championship into League One to come into League Two football, but why they let him go full stop. Because I think a lot of Huddersfield fans expected that he would be a first team player for them this season. So not only to leave the club, but also somewhat of a star to them. And I think his performance as a star have only helped prove that his ceiling seems to be a lot higher than League Two football, and it's a real statement signing from us, which, as you mentioned, has gone under the radar so far. But I think as time goes on, and he continues to play the way he is playing, and get so many assists and put such great into the box, and really look to punish the opposition and make them work hard in order to try and remove the danger that he's putting into the box continuously. he doesn't seem to put a bad ball in every good ball that comes with some element of danger. And not only that, he's a very good defender in his own right as well. I think the more that continues, the more he's going to not be sort of under the radar anymore, and teams are going to work out just how good of a player he is, and maybe they'll try and adapt to how they're playing or to try and eliminate the risk that he poses. But so far, he's been absolutely terrific, and I'm about to say again.
Certainly one that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Last sort of specific player before we start talking about Saturday in particular is obviously Connor Mahoney, who was with us last season. I think he was our top scorer and I think highest assist maker in the team, which was good, but we wasn't a team that scored loads of goals. So, but I believe Connor's unfortunately been injured for a while, hasn't he? I think he started the first 3 games and picked up an assist, but had he settled in well before he picked up whatever this problem is that's keeping him out of the team at the moment?
Yeah, I thought I was quite impressed with him during pre-season. I thought he looked a bright player. Um, he came with a bit of expectation, I think. Obviously, we've seen him play at a higher level and done fairly well at Gillingham. I think, obviously, depending on who you ask, like with most players and most clubs, some will say that he was good, others won't. But from what I was reading, a lot seemed to think that he was a decent player. Um, and he sort of continued that into the start of the season. Unfortunately, got an injury against Carlisle, which is going to see him out for quite some time. But hopefully, he'll come back in due course and pick where he left off from. But considering that he's been out the side and we've unfortunately lost his services, we've not seen a drop off in performances. We've had players come in and pick up from where he's left off and done an excellent job, if not even better. So I think that's testament to the recruitment thus far and how well we've recruited. We've had players just able to slot in and do an excellent job and still have players pushing to provide competition as well.
And again, kudos to Stephen Clemence and the coaching team, I suppose, because they'd have obviously brought him in with a view to him playing every game if he's available. So to have then lost him so early in the season and found a way to still win 5 games out of 7 in the league already is testament to the job they're doing. And what a great player to have coming back whenever that may be, if you're still in a decent position in the table. In terms of pre-season, Taylor, I had you dropped. I thought there'd be a drop off this season, and that wasn't just because I didn't think Stephen Clemence done a good job at Gillingham. It was part of my thought process because I thought he was underwhelming. So I'm not going to sit here and say anything else. I thought that, coupled with the fact that you'd lost Pete Wild, who'd done a terrific job for a couple of seasons at the level, and the fact that there was going to just be a complete change around in the club. It was going to be something new. It might take time to adjust. I had you down as 15th in my 1 to 24s. At the moment, I'm being proved massively wrong, like to almost like Crawley levels from last season, which is absolutely fine. What was the expectation from you or the Barrow fan base before a ball was kicked? And given now that we're sort of 15% into the season, how much has the expectation and the hopes changed?
Truthfully, I don't think anyone could really nail anything down to say this is how well we're going to do this season, because there was so many elements to trying to work out where we were going to be. So losing Pete Wild is obviously one factor. The next factor was Stephen Clemens himself. Obviously, the sample size that we had to go on in terms of his managerial ability was so small. We could only go off of how we did with you guys, and it's only what was it, 6 months, if that.
Yeah, it's
Spell,
about
so
30,
we can't
about
really
25, 30 games, yeah.
More much. Um, yeah, so it's just a small sample size, and had as long as he wanted to get players in and various other things like that. So it's difficult to say. So as sort of time went on in the window, we bring these signings in. I was optimistic, but I was still thinking I think there might be a bit of a drop off to last season. Truthfully, I had us sort of lower top half,
Okay.
top of the bottom half, around sort of 11th to 13th place. Um, And like you said, so far, proving everybody wrong on that basis. But I think it was always difficult to really nail something down when you lose someone who's been with the club the past 2 seasons, the way Pete Wild has been and helped transform the club.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, especially from the outside, saw Pete Wild come in and really transform the club and really pinpointed that down to Pete Wild himself, which it was a very fair assessment, but at the same time there was so many different facets to that where they were perhaps either ignored or not recognized by people from the outside, where we really professionalized as a football club alongside the appointment of Pete Wild as well. At the time he came in, we did a lot off the pitch in order to really push on as a club, recognise that the first couple of seasons that we had in the Football League weren't good enough, and we were perhaps fortunate to still be in the Football League, sort of propelled up and kept in the division by clubs in positions where they were either struggling financially or there were other factors as to why they inevitably dropped out of the Football League rather than ourselves. And I think it was a bit of a wake up call. We ended up bringing in a sporting director who's done a fantastic job. And he's the reason why Stephen Clemence is now in the role.
Mhm.
There was no panicking when Pete Wild did leave the club. We had a short list in mind, of which Clements was on there. And he was quickly identified as the right man for the job. So I think that was testament to sort of the professionalism within the club now. And that was also a reason why I had a bit more confidence rather than just going, well, we've lost Pete Wild and now we've got this manager in who's not had much experience in the division or management full stop,
Yeah.
regardless of all the work he'd done with Steve Bruce in particular at various different football clubs. He'd never really been given the number one job aside from at Gills. So that was another reason why I weren't panicking too much and why I probably didn't have us lower in the division. But I think, like I've said, you couldn't really nail down anything as to where we were definitely going to be. So it's really, this is a fresh start for the football club. It's not, we're not trying to pick up from where we left off with Pete Wild. This is a new football club in the sense of we have a different identity about us now. We're playing a completely different way, and we want to prove that it's not just we weren't just a vanity project for Pete Wild. We are more than that. We're our own football club, and we have our own identity that we're going to build upon again, and we're going to look to try and keep at the top of the division and really push on. And hopefully, this start to the season is only the very beginning of what we can do. And hopefully, we'll continue to pick up some very impressive results and really push on. And hopefully, we'll ensure that we get the respect that we deserve and that we're not just, like I said, that vanity project. We are more than that. And hopefully, we'll continue upon the great start that we've had.
No, fair play to everyone involved. Like I say, and it also proves that it wasn't just Pete Wild in the sense that you've got good players, because Stephen Clemens has brought some of his own players in, but there's still players there from the existing group from the last couple of seasons that have continued to excel. So it proves that you had, a good squad to start with, and it's just a case now of tweaking it and tinkering it and trying to get out Stephen Clemens wants to play, and hopefully, like you say, pushing on further up the table and to wherever that ceiling may be. Of course, after Saturday, I wish you the best of luck apart from the return fixture, but I hope you're absolutely shocking at the weekend. With that in mind, I'm assuming there's not going to be too many changes from Barrow unless of injuries, because you're playing so well. I know you was pretty much at full strength for the Chelsea game, which I understand it's a huge, huge game for the players, for Stephen Clemence, for the football club as a whole. But in terms of compared to last Saturday to this Saturday, do you see many alterations at all?
There were a couple of players that were missing on Saturday and on Tuesday night.
Mhm.
Um, so I think now and hopefully the past couple of games with fitness problems, so hopefully they'll be fit to restart, and that will really have us built the way we hopefully should be and probably give us the best starting 11 possible if those two were able to start.
Mhm.
Um, Not to say the players that have come in haven't done a good. I think that's testament to quite a few injuries and still be able to perform the way we have. So, but I think we'll be in a much stronger position if those two are able to start on Saturday.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've got problems as well. So we confirmed that there's going to be no Ethan Coleman. He's picked up another injury now. He's got a knee problem. Jake Turner, the goalkeeper's out for another few weeks. And Timmy Dieng, I think, still a couple of weeks away. And we've still got doubts over Connor Masterson, Josh Andrews, Aaron Rowe, Bradley Dack. So still plenty of good players that we can't get on the football pitch at the moment. But we've been lucky in the sense that a couple of the younger members have stepped up and are now sort of first choice, which is brilliant. And I can't see Gills making any changes from Saturday's starting 11 after the win at Notts County unless there are any problems. So for me, it would be, if it's not broke, don't fix it and all that type of thing. Final question, because I do understand that you're on holiday and your Wi-Fi is not the greatest. The dreaded score prediction.
It's going to be a tough one, honestly. Something playing in my mind is the fact that we got completely turned over in the last game against you lot. Obviously with Clemence at the helm at that time as well. So, but I think, like I said, we're a different club now. So, hopefully, I think a 1-1 draw would be not only a good result, but I think probably what I'd go for.
Mhm.
Bearing in mind that obviously you guys have started quite well as well. So I think probably a 1-1 draw will be seems a fair result.
No, of course, and I wouldn't expect you to not back your team at the moment because you're playing really well. I'm going to back us to win though, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We're 14 unbeaten at the Priestfield. We haven't lost in the league since Boxing Day last year. We've started off with 3 wins on the spin in the league under Mark Bonner. And just looking at head-to-heads at Priestfield, I mean, I know there's not loads of games historically, but we played 12 times in Kent and we've only lost twice and we've won 7 and we average 2 goals a game. So I'm going to back us based on that and the fact that we've been good at home and similarly to yourself, my team's playing well. So why would I not back us? I'm going to back us to win 2-1. But yeah, I think it'd be a really good game. It'd be interesting to see potentially 2 contrasting styles. It'd be interesting to see from my point of view how Stephen Clemence has maybe developed over the summer in terms of how he sets his teams up and what sort of pace they play with. Everything points to the fact that they are going to be a different proposition to what we were for sides under Stephen last season. And yeah, really looking forward to it. Taylor, really appreciate your time. I always enjoy having a chat with you when you come on. So I really do, like I say, really do appreciate it because I understand you're in Italy at the moment enjoying some holiday time. So thank you very much. Like I've said, Gills fans and Barrow fans, as always, at the end of these episodes, thank you for watching. If you've got this far, please keep hitting that like button and please consider pressing subscribe as we quest to get towards 4,000 by the end of the season. Don't forget that Gills fan Justin Foote is doing his charity walk starting in October. So the details and the link to his Just Giving page are in the description. If you can donate anything, Justin will greatly appreciate it. We will be back, myself, Ava and the gang, at the Priestfield on Saturday for another match day live for what is another brilliant game and another big game at the top of League Two. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week and up the Gills.